Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cootie Cast, the podcast where we talk about movies that are either directed or advertised to feminine presenting people or have an angle that is interesting to read from a feminist perspective. My name is Madeline Maye, and with me is a star of the silver screen.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. May I just take a few moments to thank my public? I'm Jess, Lynne, as you all know, because you are such big fans.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We all know who you are.
This is my triumphant return to film.
That's one thing. It's crazy to me that Talkies destroyed her career because she has an amazing voice in this movie. I'm like, I would hire her just for that.
To be fair, so we are talking about the great movie Sunset Boulevard from 1950, directed by Billy Wilder, and we will get into like all of the really awesome stuff about it. So spoilers, this is going to be a lot of gushing, but also some, personal rewriting. But
mm-hmm.
I think one of the interesting things, and so the actress Gloria Swanson played the character of Norma Desmond so well that she often gets confused with Norma Desmond, and to the point where, she was a silent film star herself.
Yes, that I did know. And I also, if I'm right, the guy who plays the ex-husband was also really a director of silent film as well. I
believe almost everybody in this film who has like a cameo, like Cecil B. DeMille is in this film. He's really Cecil B. DeMille, had a hopper. Had a hopper. I mean, Buster Keaton is one of.
I saw that. Yeah, that was really funny. They have these cameos of like real, actual silent film actors, and yes, that was the real Cecil B. DeMille.
Yes. So anyway.
Yeah, this is considered a classic, and for good reason. You often see this on best films of all time lists. It's one of Billy Wilder's masterpieces, along with Some Like It Hot and
probably Double Indemnity.
Double Indemnity and The Apartment, which I have not seen The Apartment, but I hear that a lot of people say that's his best one. So that's on my list. And Jess has some notes to say, because I don't know a ton about the history behind this. I just know that now we consider it this huge success. I believe it was a success when it came out.
It was,
okay.
And it got a lot of Oscar nods. It had I think 11 Oscar nominations, and yeah, it was a success. It made $5 million in the box office on a budget of $1.75 million.
Did she get the Oscar?
She did not.
That is who the fuck won?
Judy Holliday in the movie Born Yesterday, which was a huge surprise because she beat out both Bette Davis and Gloria Swanson in this movie.
Well, I assume that she was the best actress because that's always what happens in award shows. Give it to the most deserving person.
There is a lot of theories that Bette Davis and Gloria Swanson, because they packed these big powerhouse performances, canceled each other out.
Oh, like they are taking away. This is real Green Party situation going on, stealing those votes.
To be fair, I do love Born Yesterday. It is not quite the powerhouse performance, though I do appreciate Judy Holliday.
What was the movie Bette Davis was in?
Let me look.
I'm curious now.
I had it and then I forgot it, and it'll pop back up.
Yeah, but I mean, this is really the only performance that matters. Whatever those two performances were, which I'm sure they were very good, this is the one that always gets like one of the greatest performances of all time. Norma Desmond is often listed as one of the great quote-unquote villains of all time, even though we'll be talking about that a little bit.
Justice for Norma Desmond.
We support women's wrongs here.
There is. I'm going to go even further. There is no right character in this movie. There is no sympathetic character.
Everyone is terrible. What else about this movie, Jess?
All right, so we'll start with the history. So basically, Sunset Boulevard as a street was around forever, and when Hollywood first became the mecca of the movies, it became like this huge area. So all of these stars built these mansions there, and as the talkie transition, came in, all of these silent film starlets, most of them didn't make the transition. There were a couple that did, and some to greater or lesser success. Gloria Swanson did actually transition. She made a couple talkies, and then she went on to do like Broadway and TV and radio. So she wasn't. She was never not acting. She's not like the Clara Bow who went off into kind of obscurity with this. Yeah,
which is probably it's good. We like that.
we support it. I wish that had happened to more people. Like Marlene Dietrich did make the transition. There were some that did, but by and large, a lot of the silent screen stars just didn't. Talkies changed their whole acting style.
I mean, there's also a lot of directors that did make the switch. Alfred Hitchcock, John Ford, both were able to transition. It was really interesting time, and it does make sense to me, at least, that the behind the scenes people would be better equipped than the people in front. But also, it is interesting. I actually don't know anything about this era, but like what was considered like, I guess, the sound and the voice that they wanted from these actors. That all of a sudden went from like somebody to nobodies. I think it can't all just be the singing in the rain situation.
No, it mostly wasn't. That's a kind of a hyped up version, obviously. Yeah. Singing in the Rain, another great movie. Maybe we'll do it on here sometime.
One of my favorites, yeah.
But so one of the things to know, though, they didn't give stars much time. Marlene Dietrich was able to make the transition because they gave her a year to basically learn how to react. Mm-hmm. But a lot of stars, there was like, it was studio system, movies were being pushed out. I think Clara Bow had 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of them, especially the ones that didn't come from a play background, probably had never really had a lot of experience with that, talking to somebody, let alone in front of the camera.
Well, and it was a whole different acting style because, the silent films, it's very much like close-ups and big facial expressions, big eyes, like that was a huge thing. And acting completely changed. Mm-hmm. And then in the 30s, it was even worse because then it had like a lot of the screwball comedies, like the Katharine Hepburn style ones, mm-hmm. where dialogue became even faster.
Yes.
So just a lot of these stars just got pushed out. So
Billy Wilder, ironically, one of the forefronts of this style, especially you watch something like Some Like It Hot, is kind of like the ultimate example of that like fast talking screwball comedy.
I'd say His Girl Friday even more so, but it's definitely within that realm.
Did he also do that one?
I don't know if he directed that one, but that's the one where it's
that's the example. I'm saying as a filmmaker, Billy Wilder is also guilty of all these things, and it's when we go into there's some meta stuff that I want to talk about with the Sunset Boulevard once we go into the analysis part of it.
Yes, exactly. But so all of this is kind of the backdrop for Billy Wilder, who is the director and also co-writer, who saw all of these actors. And at this point, there were some like very famous actresses who were really huge stars, like Mary Pickford or, Paula Negri, who were these huge silent film stars who just lived in these houses and never came out. They were well-known recluses. And then there were also ones, like I mentioned, Clara Bow, who had very public bouts of mental illness. Clara Bow herself was an alcoholic, but she also was diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression, and at one point couldn't even be alone in the room with her husband. And this happened to a bunch of other stars, like Valeska Surratt, who wrote in her autobiography that she was the Virgin Mary, or Audrey Munson, who died in an institution, even though she maintained her beauty regimen for the rest of her life. So, like, this is a common story, and because of this, it was inspired the telling of this story. And why I wanted to bring that up, even though it doesn't directly relate other than inspiration, is these are real things that really happened, and these are... Norma Desmond is not... She's villainous, sort of, but she's not seen as an unsympathetic one in the movie. But even so, it's still a disservice because this was happening to everyone.
It is also interesting, like how this film has been interpreted. A lot of people, when it first came out, like thought, this guy Joe is the hero. He, this woman is awful, and he's away from it. But watching it again, especially now, you kind of realize that the film is not doing that. Which again we'll get into more. This is kind of a nice companion piece to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane that we also covered on this this program.
Yeah, I think Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is probably directly inspired by this one because Whatever Happened to Baby Jane came out 12 years later.
Yeah.
So going back to this though, it was supposed to be an adaptation of the book The Loved One, but they couldn't get the rights, so they wrote kind of a similar story. But that book is about basically somebody who works in a graveyard becoming obsessed with a starlet.
Ooh.
So
that would have been fun.
Yeah. But they did kind of pull in some of the stuff like the death of the chimp, which we'll go into in just a minute, to avoid the censors in the Breen Code, which were very, very evident back in the day. And for those of you who don't know your film history, basically the silent era movies were very, very sexy. They showed a lot of like skin. You can see like it was a different standard. And because of that, there were a lot of protests about no morals in Hollywood. So Hollywood took it upon themselves to censor because they didn't want to be censored by the government, which is the Breen Code. The Breen was the guy who created it, and the studios followed it pretty religiously during the whole studio system from the time it was implemented until the end of the studio system in about the 70s. So to get around the Breen Code, Billy Wilder and his co-writer, who I'm going to...
when did the Haines Code get? Was that the same thing?
Yeah,
okay.
I believe so. So Charles Brackett and V.M. Marshman Jr., so they would send in the script piecemeal, bits at a time. They wouldn't tell anyone what they were working on, just pages. They thought it was a completely different, like a rom-com movie. And as they're sending in these pages, Billy Wilder didn't know how it was going to end.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting reading about all the little tricks that they did back then. Like, Alfred Hitchcock kind of famously... like buttered up all the people in the program, kind of slightly bought them out, and then also tricked a lot of them into being like, oh, there is actually no nudity in the Psycho's famous shower scene. There is skin though. Like, he did get skin passed. Like, it's very short, but he did manage to trick the people that they didn't see what there actually was, at least a couple of frames of skin in there.
Well, and it also redefined what our film language is.
Yes.
Because, like, the idea of, like, fade to black and then the characters are in different clothes smoking cigarettes, like, that code had to be put in place because of
the trains entering the tunnels, things like that. This is also where we would get stuff like the queer-coded villains, because there was literally a rule that said if you did depict anything homosexual or queer related, it had to be in a villainous or negative manner, which is why so many villains still to this day are often queer coded.
That's at least part of it. There's also just good old fashioned homophobia.
They also hate us, and also it's hard because like we try to reclaim a lot of them, but it's also like it still happens. It still kind of sucks that we had that situation, but shout out to the evil queens and kings and all that.
It's true. So I think at this point we can probably go into the actual plot. So please jump in if you... I know you just watched the movie.
I just finished it. And this is like my third or fourth time watching the movie. Trying to think how to start.
The movie starts with the panorama of the city.
Yes.
And then it comes up to this big mansion, and it starts with a voiceover narration of a dead man in a pool.
Yes. It tells us the ending before we even get there, and it cuts from the pool to 6 months later where we're introduced to this guy, Joe. Joe is a struggling screenwriter. He hasn't had a hit in a while, and it doesn't seem like his hits were even such big hits. He's behind on his rent. His car is about to be impounded, and he is not doing good. He's trying to get any favor he can. He goes to a studio to try to pitch him any idea. A woman who becomes important later introduces herself by saying she hates the script that he's trying to give to the studio at Paramount. The movie's made by Paramount, so a lot of the studios are set in the Paramount lot.
And then we see the Paramount lot.
And we see the
too.
Paramount lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's a baseball story. She immediately comes in saying, I'd pass on this one, not realizing he's in the room, and they have banter back and forth.
Yes. Kind of a meet cute, even though it goes horribly wrong, as you'll see. But anyway, from there, he is basically just trying to get any money he can from anyone. He's driving around making calls, No one's really able to help him. His agent won't even help him. His agent's like, hey, starving makes the best art. And Joe's like, fuck off. To that,
also, that's just incorrect.
That's just a shitty thing to say. He is driving on Sunset Boulevard, and he spots the car impounders, and they notice him, and he drives off. He gets a flat. He pulls over into the first driveway he can find, and sure enough, it is the driveway that we saw at the beginning of the movie belonging to Norma Desmond.
So he immediately thinks that it is an abandoned house. There is no one there. The garage door is open. There's a very old car.
It's a Grey Gardens-y kind of feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you go into the house, and there are some gorgeous shots, but he also immediately starts like comparing the house to Mish Haversham, about like rage at the world because she'd been given the go-by. There are a couple, like, this is where he starts making some very sexist remarks.
Yeah, there's a lot of narration in this movie, to the point where at the beginning I'm like, I hate all of this narration, but you start to realize that there's a point to it, which I think you're supposed to hate it, honestly. That's my idea. But,
I mean, he is a point of view character, but he's not one you're specifically supposed to empathize with particularly.
Absolutely. So from there, he meets the servant, who we find out later was actually Norma's first husband and director.
But right now, he's just a very intense butler.
We don't find that out until the end of the movie, but we did talk about it earlier. That's why I'm bringing it up again. We spoiled it, sorry.
From a movie from 1950.
In our analysis, where we're telling you the plot of the movie. And they mistake him for a coffin deliverer or coffin maker, and he goes up to see Norma, who has like these big black glasses, and he realizes that they were expecting a coffin for a monkey, I guess her pet monkey, and Joe recognizes Norma, and this is where we get the first of many memeable, I can't believe I have to say memeable in these day-to-day, classic lines that you would be, if you don't know anything about the movie, there are a couple of scenes you've absolutely seen through osmosis and parody. This is one of them where she says, I am big, it's the pictures that have gotten small, referring to her not being a well-known actress anymore.
Yeah, he opens the statement by saying, you used to be big.
You used to be big. He says, I am big. And, he's like, this is weird, everything that's kind of going on.
So immediately he's trying to get out.
Yeah.
Which, is probably the right call for everyone and not what happens. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a movie.
No. Honestly, the worst thing Joe could have done is recognize her. That's probably a mistake number one. So, to reiterate, Joe is in financial ruin at this point. His plan is to move back to Ohio.
Where he really does not want to go.
He doesn't want to go. And he has no money to his name. And he mentions offhandedly before he leaves to Norma that he is a writer, and she asks him to read a script that she's been writing.
So for the last 20 years since her exit from Hollywood, which is very much not her choice, she's been writing the script to Salome, the story of a princess who had many lovers who then tried to screw her over, so she mounted their heads on pikes.
Yes.
Did I mention that I was angry when I picked this one?
And it's based off like an actual like epic.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and
my summary is paraphrasing her summary. It's not actually. It's much more than that. It's that was very reductive.
No, but it's also on point because she writes a sprawling, gigantic script, handwritten, and Joe is reading it, and his wheels start to turn. Joe's a bit of a sneaky guy. He's like, well, hold on a second. I don't have any money. This woman seems to have a whole lot of money, and I need money right now or I'm screwed. So he, thinking quickly on his feet, was like, maybe I can use this woman to get something. So instead of telling her that her script is terrible, he says, well, I could help you if you just give me some money. And not knowing what he has just gotten himself into, player does not know he is out of his league.
So we all know. We've seen the beginning. We've also seen him walk into a funeral.
Yes.
So we know we're actually in a horror movie. He is like, this is a situation I can grift.
Yes. And it's also what was it? No, it wasn't raining. That's later on in the movie. He is asked to spend the night there
because she won't let the script out of her house.
She won't let the script out of the house.
It's too precious.
It's too precious. So they send him up in a guest room, and while there, he takes kind of stock of all of the things that are in the house, the pool, which is empty at this point, and he watches the funeral of the monkey. And it's very poetic to him. And he goes to sleep. When he wakes up, he notices that all of his things are in this room now.
So during the night, Max moved all of his stuff in, and he starts to yell at Max. Norma gets involved, says that she ordered it because if he's going to be working on the script, it only makes sense that they work together.
And she also finds out that he is behind on rent and pays it, and basically pays off all of his debt. So whatever Joe's plan was, it is completely different. Now he got found out pretty quick that he's has no power over this woman at all,
and is completely out of his depth.
Yes.
So it kind of settles into at first just this weird routine. Norma is a recluse who doesn't really leave her mansion. There's her butler, Max, who is always there. He's the only one always there.
Yeah.
She will bring other people in. Like she has a bridge night where she brings in other silent film stars, the real deal silent film stars,
including Buster Keaton.
They were all
amazing.
Famous.
Yeah.
But it's she'll put on performances. She watches her old movies with him there, where it's very clear that he is uncomfortable and she is seducing him.
Yes. This leads to this comes to its first of many coming to a heads when he is taken. Well, first he's taken to have himself a change, bought in these really fancy and old-timey suits, like not of the style at all. Also, this car that we saw at the beginning, Norma fixes it up because his car gets found and towed. He no longer has a car anymore. And she just kind of drives him around and buys all these things for him and says there's going to be a big New Year's Eve party, but wouldn't you know it, there's nobody there but her.
And the musicians.
And the musicians and Max. Joe's like, I don't know why I didn't see this coming. He says that in their narration. He's like, I kind of messed that one up. Realizing that she didn't invite anybody. It was meant to be this solo affair.
She gives him a cigarette case. He gets angry and is like, I have my own life, and storms out and leaves.
He goes to his friend's New Year's Eve party, which is where the working class of Hollywood is, I guess.
Yeah, his friend is an assistant director, which, side note, this is the only nice character in the movie.
Mm-hmm. I would even say he's that nice. He's fine.
I mean, he throws a rockin' party. He invites this guy who is obviously trying to grift on everybody to stay in his house.
He is the nicest one. He is also a bit of a dude, personally, I think.
He is
by comparison, oh my god, yes, this guy is the hero. For
yes.
Sure.
I mean, this is damning with faint praise. He's also barely in the movie.
Yeah.
Also, another actor who was on Dragnet.
Interesting. So he he's allowed to kind of hang out there. So of course Joe, being the great guy he is, starts immediately seducing his fiance,
who is the same woman from earlier that they had them meet cute.
But hey, apparently she likes some of his writing and wants to team up with him, and he's like, whatever, I don't know what's going on, I hate everything, I'm gonna start a new life or do whatever. When he calls Norma's house to presumably, he says, get his things, but he finds out that Norma has attempted to kill herself, which we learned previously was something she's done multiple times before.
There are no doors.
There are no door locks anywhere because of that.
I mean, basically no full doorknobs.
Yes. No. Yeah.
So he rushes back because he feels bad at this point. And this is the moment where Norma seduces him fully.
Yes. Him, out of guilt or a million other emotions and things that are going on, sleeps with her. It's presumed that he sleeps with her. And basically just succumbs, like, this is just my life now. This is just what I'm going to do. He basically gives up writing. He's just decided, this is just kind of what's going on now. I don't really know what's left for me. And kind of becomes, as I think it's kind of obvious to everyone, the new monkey for her.
Yeah, he is the kept man.
Yes.
And this goes on for a while until he runs into these friends again, where he is at the drugstore picking up cigarettes for Norma. And it's Artie and Betty. Betty is the woman.
Yes.
And Betty wants to write with him and is like trying to convince him, and he keeps trying to say no.
Yeah, like I can't. I'm in a very, very strange place right now. I can't deal with this right now. I've got a lot going on. But he, no, that doesn't happen yet. What happens then is
Norma has finished the script.
Yes.
And decided to send it to her old buddy, Cecil B. DeMille, who she's worked with on so many pictures, and he loves her, and he'll call her. And she gets a call from someone on Paramount, but it's not him. So she's mad, and he calls 10 times. So she decides, you know what? He wants it bad enough, I have to go down to the lot, he'll see me. Yes,
and it's exactly what she does. She's recognized by the old-timers there. There's a security guard. It's like, oh my God, it's Norma Desmond. The younger security guard's like, who the fuck is this lady? And she ends up at the lot. She is approaching Cecil B. DeMille. Cecil B. DeMille says some of the most poignant stuff in this film, which we'll get to a little later. But basically here, he's like, what the world did to Norma is terrible, and I owe her at least just talking to her, whatever she wants. That's the least I can do for her. Which he does, and invites her onto the set. And this is also where we learn that Cecil B. DeMille hates the script and doesn't really know what to do because he hates it, but also doesn't want to make Norma feel bad. So the compromise kind of brings her, kind of sweet talks her, and sets her down on his chair and saying, watch how they make films nowadays. Which leads to this really one of the best scenes in the film of the crew, again the old timers, like noticing her. A stagehand puts a light onto her, and all of these other actors and people, again all of a certain age, coming in. There's a great, probably the funniest, unfortunately funniest line is when somebody says, "Norma, I thought she was dead."
So, but they really do flock to her.
Yes.
And then immediately Cecil B. DeMille says, get that light off her, let's get back to the movie.
Yes.
Because as much as he feels bad for her, he's not actually willing to make a movie with her, even if it's not her script.
It's true. I mean, it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to give her a role, though she also is also not doing herself by any favors by also saying that she's still going to be difficult to work with. If she has a line like, "Oh, I don't work before 10 or after 4:30."
I mean, she's very much expecting the starlet treatment.
Yes.
So anyway, so he kind of he wants to find out. Cecil B. DeMille calls to find out who's calling. It's another person on the lot who's trying to borrow her car to shoot a movie in.
Yes, and Max finds this out and is appalled by it. While that's going on, Joe runs into Betty again, and presumably we think rejects her for the final time, and they end up leaving, and Norma's convinced that she's going to be in Cecil B. DeMille's next movie, and starts going through all of these beauty treatments that are
very intensive,
shot very scary, body horror-esque.
Yeah.
And while this is going on, it turns out Joe decided that he is going to help Betty with the script, and has been sneaking out at night to do so.
And they flirt. Betty comes on to him, says that she's in love with him. He tries to back her up, but then also puts it on her as it's her responsibility to keep his sexual desire in check, which is messed up.
Yes. And for the film's part, I do believe it is saying he is bad for doing this, all of this. That's my argument, at least. We'll talk about it more later on.
But they keep getting together. They do end up eventually kissing.
Yes.
Poor Artie.
Artie is in Nevada this entire time, has no idea what's going on. And I'm going to grab some water. Why don't you finish off
Sure.
this last part of the movie? Thank you.
Oh, I'm back. It's been so long. So basically, at this point, Joe is trying to run away. Like, he is like, how can I get out of this without telling Betty what's going on so she never knows? And Norma is not stupid. She might be crazy, but she's not stupid. So she decides to call Betty.
Yes.
And she tells Betty, like, you need to ask Joe what he actually does for a living. So no matter what else is going on, I'm going to say, and this is probably not what the film intended, but I'm going to say Norma's a girl's girl.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, Norma tells me also, this is where we find out that Max is her first husband, and some other very terrifying details that I'll get to later.
He's also been writing all of her fan letters.
All her fan letters, et cetera, et cetera. Joe is furious, basically calls Betty over to be like, look at my terrible life. Look how weird everything is. I'm clearly sleeping with this old-time Hollywood starlet. Like, and Betty's like, Betty's like...
Betty at first is like, this never happened.
Yeah.
Leave with me right now, this never happened.
And he's like, nah, this is pretty bad. And Betty does finally leave. He's like, I can't even look at you anymore. And leaves. And Joe decides to leave, not to chase Betty, but to finally go back to Ohio. All this time, Norma's like, I bought a gun to kill myself. I'll do it. And right when he is about to, he's in the front yard and all that, he gets shot by Norma a couple times with the gun and falls into the pool, hence the beginning of the film.
I will say a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
He basically, Joe tries to confront her about all of her delusions, to point out that the studio didn't actually want her, they just wanted to borrow her car, that nobody cares about her anymore, that she's going to rot and die alone. Which is not the way you handle a mental health support to someone who needs it.
No.
Especially not someone who's holding an active pistol.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's his fault. I don't know why he didn't think she was not going to shoot him or whatever, but that is absolutely his fault.
So, anyway, so he dies. The movie picks back up, and it is not the end of the movie, though.
No, he's still narrating from beyond the grave, and we see that the entire house is filled with reporters and cameras, ironically, for the first time in a long time, and it took just her killing somebody to have it happen. The police are trying to interrogate her, but she has completely lost her mind by this point. She is completely in an illusion. The only thing that snaps her out is when she finds out that Paramount has brought cameras for the news, and that puts her into a trance, which Max kind of...
Hedda Hopper is there narrating it, and that's the real Hedda Hopper who narrates this part.
Yes. Max is like, it's the scene, it's your greatest scene, like trying to give her one last moment. And then he also gets his one last moment where he's directing for his probable last time ever. And this is where we get probably the most iconic scene in the whole film of her walking down as everyone is frozen in place around her. It leads to the end where she breaks and says, I'm so happy to be back. It's amazing to be a star again. And we get the most famous line, I'm ready for my close-up.
And then the film does a close-up, fuzzing out on her face. And that's the end of the movie.
And that is Sunset Boulevard from 1950. There's a lot going on. First off, I do love this movie. I loved it when I first saw it, and I love it now, but for completely different reasons. My initial thought was, when I first saw this movie, it was many, many years ago. It was also pre-transition and all that stuff. And I thought that Norma was just the crazy villain of the movie. I thought that Joe was just wrong place, wrong time kind of person.
Poor
a victim,
innocent man.
poor innocent man, victim of circumstances. But now, having watched it again, I realized that there are no good people in this movie, especially Joe. Joe is like actually the worst. He is a complete scumbag and also a hack. I think that's what really kind of struck me about this viewing of it, because there's so much like narration in the movie. Like we hear him and his prose, how he's describing things throughout, and it's like really, really annoying and really pretentious, and you realize, oh, he just kind of sucks. He's maybe not that great of a writer. Like maybe he was never good or never really had that strong of a heyday. And we kind of, I think that's intentional. I don't think you're supposed to, hear him talk as if like he's this sage writer. No, he's like, he really is a piece of shit. Like
he's the epitome of an unreliable narrator. And
yes,
I will say you're right. Billy Wilder was aware of it. There's a quote where he said, "It's the story of a terrible writer who the irony is the only story he can tell is the story of his own death."
Yes, and you can absolutely see that, because again, he is the writer essentially of this. Everything's kind of from his perspective, and everything is so obscured. There's so much going on. You say something, because I'm just going to keep going.
No, you're right. He's
Yes.
definitely a hack. And like even his script he's trying to sell, like one of the things that Betty criticizes about it is it's a retread of another script.
Yeah.
And you know the other story, which these are all very fine meta points, but it's still, you know, the other story he's trying to sell that she read and liked a few pages of was him trying to get into the mindset of a serial killer. In a very trite kind of way, and she liked a flashback scene and wants to expand on that.
Because it was, as he said, real. It was something that actually came from his childhood, which is why it's better than the bullshit that he was writing before. There are a lot of themes that are kind of purposefully in conflict with each other. One of them being the battle between the silent pictures and the pictures of the era in which it was made, which is shown by the battle between dialogue and no dialogue. I think it's extremely telling that the person that comes into Norma's life to help her is a writer writing words and dialogues, the thing that drove her out of her career originally. And I also think it's very clever that at the very end of the movie, when Joe is mad, the roles have switched, and Norma is the one doing talking and pleading, and Joe is hardly saying anything at all, perhaps for the first time in his life. Because that's all he does is make snarky comments. He is a huge, annoying cynic throughout this movie.
He also makes a lot of sexist comments.
Yes.
To about everybody besides Betty, who he has as the pedestal of the one he wants to be with.
But he also undermines her, too. Like, he basically has, like, the, hey, doll face kind of treats her as a girl. The great irony of the movie, which is why, again, I think it's so smart, is that Joe describes himself as somebody who is from a different era than Norma, but he is also washed out and out of time. Like, he constantly talks about how this Betty, the writer, is like younger, fresher than he is. Like, he is not at all different from Norma. Well, they're both washed up, essentially old for what they're doing.
I think it's a little further than that, and that's probably what I would say is the main theme of the movie, which is ageism.
Yes.
And it's not even subtle. Like, this movie is not subtle, but it is in conflict with this messaging sometimes, and I think that's actually the better for it because it's so well handled.
And I think how that's portrayed is through self-delusion. Like, Joe imagines himself as still being kind of like young and hip and getting it. Norma, is in delusion that she is still a 25-year-old star or whatever. The only one, and even like, according to Joe, Betty's also is also kidding herself because she's fresh and hasn't really received the negative treatment, which might not even be true. Joe's just kind of assuming Betty's life. We don't really know what's going on with her. Joe is very much kind of doing the, oh, sweetheart, you got a lot to learn, kid, which is extremely infantilizing. But also, it does show that the one who does kind of come out the best from this experience is Betty, who does do what Joe can and leaves. Like she sees all the stuff going on, and yeah, she does say like, hey, I'll forget about this, but at the end she does get out of there.
I mean, I do think Betty is deluded, but not in the way that Joe is.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Joe says. I think she's deluded into thinking that Joe can be saved, that she can be in love with him.
Yes.
This is a man that she's known through the course of weeks, maybe months, and she's known in the context of being friends with her fiance.
Yeah.
Like, this could not be this great romantic love. She's missing a lot of context. She doesn't know this man.
No. Yeah, like I said, she is kind of very fresh-faced. She seems that there are all of these endless possibilities, and she wants it. And, a lot of the things that aren't really said, like, the fact that she wants Joe to help her with the script. There could be some admiration. She does seem to genuinely think Joe is a good writer, but there's also the underlying context of there is no way she would have gotten anywhere as a woman with this script by herself. She does kind of need somebody like Joe, otherwise just nothing's going to happen.
But the way it's framed, the way she says it, is I'm not good enough, which I don't know if that's what she actually believes. It's definitely what Joe believes and what gets him to write with her.
Yes, and it could be a little bit of both. Honestly, like, it is the kind of system that makes us believe all of the horrible lies that are told to us, especially people that are marginalized.
But I do want to cut back to, because I think you're right about delusion, but it's also just flat out ageism. Like, the film is framed where Norma Desmond is supposed to look horrific, but she's gorgeous. Like, Gloria Swanson in this movie is a dime. In my personal opinion, everybody, is good looking. It's Hollywood. But I think she is actually much hotter than the actress who plays Betty.
They have their own charms.
Yes, of course. But it's, like, she looks great.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
And, like, Gloria Swanson was 50 or 51 when this is filmed. And she just looks amazing.
Incredible. Yeah.
And, like, you're supposed to see the horrific start, all the stuff she's doing to keep young. And, I mean, that part is more body horror, but it's also, I mean, she clearly has the star power. And I think it's not really commented on, but like when she goes to the lot, people are excited to see her. People want to see her. If they made a movie with her, she probably would draw people in.
Yeah, and this is kind of what was my big takeaway from the film, was the realization that the actual true villain of this movie is the Hollywood system and just our, like you said, ageist, terrible society. There are a couple of like offhand lines that I feel tell a much bigger story or kind of imply a much more horrible thing that things that have happened to Norma. Cecil B. DeMille has a line like, when 12 PR people are deciding your life, you're not gonna come away unscathed from that, making it seem like she's probably been lied to and put into this horrible, like, her whole life. They talk about that she was discovered when she was 16, when Max discovered her, which puts in an even creepier aspect that, like, this man who is lying to her and also married her was initially, I guess, like a father figure to her in a lot of ways, which is like, oh my god, like, everyone has been treating this woman like, talk about groomed. Honestly.
Right. Yeah, I think she was, he said, like, she was 17 when he, like, did her in her first picture. So, like...
But she was 16 specifically. I do remember that number because I was very shocked by hearing it.
Yeah, but he also comes back into her life, not in a way to help her or to help her move on or to be her husband again and be an equal partner. He comes back into her life to keep her in this delusional state.
Well, because that's what he also wants too. He's also trying to relive this glory day, and again, the creepiest way of kind of keeping a grown woman in a state of perpetual childhood, in a sense.
But it continues to feed her delusion. It continues to keep her stuck in a way where she couldn't go out and do what the real actress Gloria Swanson did, which is make a career outside of Hollywood.
Yeah. They absolutely have a codependent relationship, and yeah, to me, the real enemies are just the horrible men that have made all of this happen, and it's really awful that she has to suffer because of all of these hacks. Honestly, like these people that don't even deserve to be in her presence. Honestly.
It's
like
true.
that are controlling her life and have made her to be insane. Like they even mentioned that towards the end she was a terror to work with. You know, like yeah, like this is what the system does. It turns all of us into evil, crazy people.
Well, and I think the movie doesn't explicitly get into this, but it is a little bit implicit, and this is why I spent some time on it in the history portion. There were plenty of people on all sides of the camera that did not make it from the transition to talking pictures. Like talkies were just, it was a huge sea change. But the ones who bore the brunt of that were women.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they weren't given any grace. A lot of them died alone and in poverty, you know, and nobody cared.
Yeah, I think that's what's all really interesting, because at the end of the day, you know, like we can have like these moments, like again, like the big moments of her in the Paramount lot when everybody's surrounding her, like, oh my God, it's Norma Desmond, we all love you. Even Cecil B. DeMille's like, God, she was so great. But no one's giving her a job. No one's like, if she is, that was kind of what was interesting to me. It's not like she ever turns down a job. Like, it's never like she's given a role that's like, she says is beneath her. She's not offered anything. She's not even offered as an example, a motherly role that maybe she would not like because or
even
whatever,
a cameo,
or a cameo, or anything. Like, you know, like the kind of stuff that we would maybe see in more modern movies where they talk about this stuff. But she's given nothing. Like, clearly all these people like her, but they're like, well, I mean, it's like a racehorse with a broken leg coming in to ask to be raced again. Everyone's got the shotgun in the back. You know, it's really disgusting and heartbreaking.
And the one critique I have, like the one major critique I have with this movie, and I love this movie too, obviously, is that this is Joe's story in the beginning, but it's really Norma's story in the end. And she's the one that, like, it finishes off after he died. He's no longer even a voice. Like, it's hers. But it should have been hers all along. We didn't need this as the framing device.
Now, all of that being said, Norma is no saint. She is also a villain. I need to point that out. Like, as much as we love and stan her, she is not an angel by any means. She is very deliberately controlling Joe, and she knows that she's doing that, and she knows that she has him in a position where he cannot escape, and she likes and promotes that. There is if there's another conflict between ageism, there is also a class conflict where we see the difference between Norma, who has all this money, versus Joe, who doesn't. Very clearly kind of portrayed in the different New Year's Eve parties, where we see that Norma's New Year's Eve party, even though it's them two alone, which is kind of its own statement in this very grand house, versus the lively, friendly party at a much more, you know, simple environment. And I find it, I think that's definitely a part of it, this idea that because Norma has so much money and Joe doesn't, like, she can kind of just do what she wants while Joe can't, which is not saying that Joe didn't also just get himself into this position. Like, he absolutely did. And Joe does seem like the guy who is like turning down maybe jobs that could have helped him. There's a little bit of that suggestion as my roommate walked by.
Yeah, I would say that they are all villains.
Yes.
But Norma definitely does control him with money, and she knows she's doing it. She also tries to separate him from his true love, Betty, which I personally think she did Betty a favor. But you know, that's.
I think that was more of a polite, a nice outcome. Maybe if it wasn't the goal, it was a nice consequence of it.
I'm sure it was not actually the goal of what she was trying to do, but you know, if you're gonna break it up, you're telling the truth.
You know what? Sometimes it's about the solution, not the journey that got us there.
Yeah, it's, you know, she has all this money, and there's the other piece about it where she can't see enough to see herself away from the studio system, because if she's got all these resources, which are never in any question, she could just make her own movie.
Yeah.
But she can't really see outside the system which she was created in.
It's expensive to make a movie. I wonder. I mean, she probably could like buy her own like vanity project, whether she knows how to do that or not. That is an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. It's more, I think, and this also is a comparison to whatever happened to Baby Jane, which is she can't see outside the system she's in because she's just a product of it, and you know is therefore abusing other people, and that doesn't, you know, excuse her own abuse. She is controlling, and she does come off as being very domineering. Now, for me, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but she comes in being like, this is what I want, this is how, and the film frames it as if this is a villainous trait.
Well, her thing is she's not adaptable.
No.
Like, she is unable to do what needs to happen in order to survive in the new world. And again, like, she's also not given that opportunity because it's patriarchy that she is under, but she also doesn't do herself any favors by saying, I am going to only do this, I refuse to change, which is also Joe's problem. Joe is also kind of very stuck up. He obviously has a very high sense of himself, that he's above certain kinds of work, that he's above Norma or whatever, and the jobs that he's been offered. But he is just like Norma, which is why, in a really twisted way, the relationship makes like perfect sense, because they're kind of just mirrors of each other.
I honestly also, you know, I think it's interesting the way that the age gap is portrayed between, you know, Joe and Norma versus Joe and Betty.
Yes.
So Joe is about 10 years older than Betty, and about 20 years younger than Norma. You know.
Yeah.
And that is reflective of the actors. William Holden in this movie was 32. 32 sure looked different back then.
30 was like 80 back then.
Cigarettes have an effect on your skin.
Rod Serling. That's all I'm gonna say. Back then, the typical male lead was just like the most saggy fletched person you've ever seen, and that was considered hot back then, I guess.
You know, when everyone looks like that, I guess.
There's nothing to compare it to.
But it is one of those things where the age gap between him and Betty is not commented on. That's fine. He's 10 years older, but that's fine because he's the man and he gets to be older.
It is commented on.
Well, it's commented on, but more in like a, oh, you're a kid, you don't know what you're doing, not in a, we shouldn't be together because I'm too old for you.
See, I didn't exactly see it like that. The moment where they're walking through the empty set together, and he asks her 20, she's like 22. He's like, oh, I remember 22. 22 was like a great age. I think there is a specific point there to say that, like, again, for all intents and purposes, he is a Norma to this woman. Whether either of them even realize it, I think the intention is like, no, we're all not that far away from aging out of relevance within this system. Like, Joe isn't in any different a position. He's already longing for the good times. I mean, that's why he wants to go back to Ohio. He wants to just kind of give everything up and go back to a simpler time. Everyone's kind of looking towards the past, except for Betty, unless we consider going with Joe to be the past, which it kind of is. That's another possibly interesting topic. But yeah, again, like with the ageism comes this longing to return to some good old day, or believing that we have always been in that good old day and nothing has ever changed in our life. And yeah, I think it's very interesting.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's one of those things where everyone is living in the past, but he is commenting on the age, but it's not in a way to be like, I shouldn't be with you. It doesn't stop them from getting together, and no one else comments on it.
No. And, again, that's another sign of how things are. An older man is considered more normal than an older woman, and I think that's absolutely what the shocking effect is of Norma and him being together. It's like, oh, Norma's so much older. Like, yeah, if the roles were switched, it would be just a normal Hollywood movie.
Yes.
Which is interesting. We have a couple of comments. Chris Talks giving the two big lines from the movie. We love to hear it. The pictures are smaller. Daylene C. Clark, thanks for watching, says, might be one of the earliest showbiz satire releases that I've ever heard of, which it probably is. It's definitely an early one. Living in a pastime paradise is a hell of a drug. Yeah.
Yeah, and the movie explicitly comments on it too. Like, one of the things that happens in the ending fight, the ending conflict between Joe and Norma, is he screams, "You're a 50-year-old woman, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you don't try to be 25." Which, on the one hand, the movie is trying to say, like, she needs to stop living in the past and is using Joe as a mouthpiece, and he's not explicitly wrong. But on the other hand, who the hell is he to tell her how to live his life or live her life? He's not exactly successful.
Yeah. Also, he's doing the same thing. He's trying to be younger than he is, than she. At the same time, like, they're not different people. Like, I think Joe makes this mistake that he is different, and I also think there are times where Joe kind of like, no, we're basically the same washed out person. But at the end, he does kind of make the mistake. Like, no, I'm different. I'm not going to do this. Like, no, you already did. That's why you died. Like, you have the same fate as Norma. And even though it's implied, I do wish that it was more explicit that the problem is the men in Norma's life, in the system in Norma's life, that made her like this. It's definitely there, and it's definitely plainly stated. I think it would have been a little bit nicer for it to be a clearer message, because it is very easy to watch a film like this and the takeaway being, God, that Norma sure is crazy. She should have acted her age.
Which I can see that. It's interesting because I also saw this movie young. I saw it in high school, and I've seen it a couple times throughout the years. And, I always got from the jump that Joe was an unreliable narrator and that Joe was at least complicit. I don't know if I quite realized how much or how predatory Norma was at first, because she really was. Like, she absolutely trapped him into the situation knowing what she was doing.
Yeah, and also the class difference can't be dismissed. Like, as much as this is a movie about patriarchy, it is also a movie between somebody who has money and who doesn't. There could be an argument, and I don't even think this isn't in the film. I think this could very well is also being said by the film, in that while Norma and Joe are both delusional, Norma has enough money to sustain that, because she doesn't have to really live outside of her world. It's sad that she's there, but she can, sustain herself, while Joe is constantly reminded of his failures every single day.
Until he decides to step into the delusion with Norma, which is partially why it's attractive to him.
Yeah, and I think there is absolutely a statement about class. Like, as much as we all love and pity Norma, she is an elite millionaire. Like, it's, millionaires still suck.
Yes. Oh, and Thaleen says, there's nothing wrong with admitting I'm a real 53-year-old. It's one of the most freeing statements you can make. And I agree with that. And Norma never gets there, but I also think she's never really allowed to get there. She is a product of an ageist society, and she very much falls into that. And so is Betty, at least in terms of beauty standards. There's one of the most interesting lines that Betty has in the movie, and she's not there that much, but she talks about how she came to Hollywood and wanted to be a star, and they made her get a nose job.
Yeah, it's a very important moment.
And she gets a nose job and then can't act. So what is all of this even for? Like, they make her change herself before she even gets a chance to try doing the thing she's supposed to be doing it for. But I guess it doesn't matter because she's pretty and she likes being behind the scenes anyway.
But it is also, again, commenting on the same thing, this idea of women not meeting beauty standards. You know, I think we are absolutely supposed to compare what happened to her to what happened to Norma. And it's definitely, if anything, it does kind of seem like a warning that maybe just don't go to Hollywood. Hollywood seems like a piece of shit. And it does treat women terribly, even though this is not the most woke film by a long shot. I do think for 1950, it is at least trying to make some better statements than perhaps other films of the era.
I mean, I would say even better than some much more modern films. Like, you know, Betty is very much a side character. She is very much a romantic interest, but she has personality traits.
Yeah.
There are traits I don't like about her. Like, she very clearly wants to run away with her fiance's friend, you know? But she also is a writer. She's ambitious. She's smart, and she has her own history and her own past, which is a lot more than I can say about a lot of maybe even main characters in some other franchises that it came out much more recently. Cough, cough, Matrix, cough.
Yes. Look out for that movie video essay, which will someday maybe happen. It'll happen. I think what's interesting, too, is that Joe is stuck in his own past, and the film, I think, makes very subtle nods to this. One, the fact that he is able to recognize Norma Desmond in that room, I think, is also very telling when a lot of other people do not seem to have the ability, especially younger people. And I think he is already developing, old man syndrome. There's this moment at the party where he is trying to make a phone call, but he can't because there's two women kind of laughing together, and he kind of looks over at them in disgust, and we kind of get the sense that I think Joe hates, young people. I think Joe hates young women especially. I think there is, as much as he hates to admit it, something about Norma that he is drawn to, whether he would ever, admit it or not. There is a lot of... Boy needs to go to therapy, is what I'm trying to say. Everyone in this film needs to go to therapy.
Well, and he is explicitly a misogynist character. It's in his internal monologue a lot. You know, the way he's dismissive toward these two women who are just giggling into a phone. Even the way he flirts with Betty at first, which, I mean, she starts off kind of insulting his work, which she's ruffled about. But then it turns very quickly into them acting a very bizarre play, and then him kind of negging her. So there's a lot of stuff going on with him and his internalized misogyny, and I think it's also a broader point of the movie because he is the point of view character. And
Joe is constantly making the worst decision. When they're flirting at the party, it is after her fiance agreed to let him stay there, and he's about to just throw all of that away. He was given a lifeline. He's just nah, I'm gonna do the worst possible thing I can right now.
Which is to go back.
Well, not to go back, which is to flirt and almost kiss his fiance. If he had seen that moment, he'd be kicked out of that apartment. He would have no place to live again. He is making bad decisions throughout this movie, and he is honestly always able to leave. I think that's what's really important. Is that, he is broke and he is in this horrible situation, but there are still a lot of times when he is given an option to not be in Norma's place, and he continues to make that decision to stay there.
Or to get in deeper.
Or to get in deeper.
He does go back and sleeps with her.
Yeah.
Which, even if he had decided, in the most charitable view, that Norma is actually the woman for him, which is clearly not what's happening.
Yeah.
Trying to have sex with someone right after they have a suicide attempt? Not a good idea.
That's not you wouldn't, as a therapist, recommend that.
No. I do want to point out something here. Norma is abusive. And yes. We mentioned it a few times, how she's controlling and how she uses her money to dominate his life. But I want to specifically mention this piece because she does this a couple times. This is the explicit one, but she also, with the gun, that's what she's trying to go for as well, which is the "if you leave, I'll kill myself."
Yeah, very classic abusive trait that a lot of people that are.
It is a common tactic that a lot of people use, regardless of gender, but you do see it a lot with female abusers, because it's not necessarily a violent one, or at least not an externally violent. But it is, abuse and violence are not about harming someone necessarily. They are about control, and violence is a tool within that. So she explicitly does that, and he does the worst thing, which is capitulate. I was watching this movie with my partner, who is a nurse, and he was basically looking at her wrists during this moment, being like, "Oh, wasn't that serious, huh?" Because if you've ever seen anyone seriously do that, it's a lot more blood than you see in this movie. And it could have just been, it's a movie, they're not showing things accurately, but the way I tend to think of it wasn't really a serious attempt.
They were able to have sex. It's not, she was at least capable of some things. And she also knows that the more that she gives him, the more indebted he will feel to her, which is how all of this got started in the first place. Part of the reason he does go back is he does feel guilty, unfortunately. He doesn't like all of these things that Norma is giving him, but he still takes and accepts it, and it still works for her in the end, where he goes back and just decides, I'm going to just be her boy toy for the rest of my life, I guess. This is my life now.
But I will also say here, there are so many other ways the story could have gone. There were so many ways they could have turned off this path. He could have called for help. Had he cared, he could have come back with some mental health support. And I know it's 1950, and what we have now is not what we had then, and not to say what we have now is wonderful, but there is more he could have done than just, I'm going to join her delusion with her.
Yeah. As even though it's poorly said in the movie, that the answer is she does need mental help. She does need somebody to bring her back into reality, because everyone, including him, until the very end, is just lying to her about who she is and what she's able to do.
And everybody is also, maybe except Max, but even him to an extent, is using her to do what they need with her money, or with her name, or with whatever. Even the call from the studio, they want to borrow her car. Yeah. It's all about what she can do for everybody else. And even Max, who is keeping her in delusion out of this weird paternalistic whatever, it's also so that he gets to live out being, catering to this starlet who was, he discovered when she was a child.
He, I think, might be secretly the most messed up character in this movie. I don't find him particularly innocent or forgivable in this film. I think he is a huge reason why Norma is the way that she is, because he himself went into this extremely terrifying, borderline pedophilic relationship with her.
It was pedophilic to start with, and
it did, and I think he wanted to keep it to that spirit in some way, if that makes sense.
He says that he walked away from his career when he could have stayed to be with her, but he would have done so much more good had he stayed in his career and found ways to engage and help her. And he never does that. He actively keeps her stuck.
No, he very much acts like, this woman bewitched me and I will always be hers forever. Like, okay, fuck off, dude. It's your problem.
So, yeah, I mean, and in the end, she does have this full break with reality, and it probably is the most memorable scene in the movie. It's certainly one of the most memorable movie endings, and Billy Wilder is known for having memorable movie endings just across his career. And I think everyone in the movie, it's a complicated movie, it's a complicated subject matter, but everyone is a real person. They feel like a real person. Everyone is complicated, and at least our two mains and one side character, we've got Joe, Norma, and Betty. They're all sympathetic. They make bad choices, and I wouldn't say I like any of them, but they're all sympathetic to some degree.
Yeah, I think just another quick thing. A lot of the moments are filmed in what I would almost call a silent film style. The one thing about Norma is that she is always acting at the most. She's always extremely dramatic in every moment. Even during normal interactions. I'm thinking of the I'm thinking of a couple of moments, but like especially like right before Joe sleeps with her, like she is presented and laid out, yeah, like a classic Hollywood starlet, and I think
she's wearing like a gauze overdress over like this like fancy satin nightgown.
And the camera is also framing her in the same way that you would a starlet, but it's in a horror but what's happening is much more horrifying, which is what's so interesting, because a lot of these shots that would be used to be used in presenting very typical Hollywood love stories is here being used to depict the most toxic relationship of all time.
And I also think, like, the cinematography is gorgeous. We alluded to this earlier. The costumes are great because everything does look glamorous but also dated.
Yes.
And it does that very well. You know, the music it's very much a cinematic score, and that you don't pay that much attention to it, but it makes the movie, I think.
Yes, I know the composer also did Rear Window, a bunch of other films as well. Very successful. A Young Frankenstein also did the score for that.
There you go, another classic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a wonderful movie, and it's a complicated one. I would say that the main theme probably still is like what Hollywood does to people, you know. But there are a lot of things and a lot of places you can go, probably more than what we've even said here, and we've spent going on 2 hours talking about it.
Yeah, and again, I think it is showing that it's the older men that seem to make it out the best, and then the older women that are in Hollywood. Though there are a lot of we do get that scene where so a lot of the people that are surrounding her are older women that are, if not the star, they are at least acting within the movie, which is kind of maybe its own statement. Maybe there is something she could have done, but again, nobody gave her that chance because she was so famous. And let's be real, people wanted her to fail. Like, they wanted the story, they wanted the message. Like, that's why all the news reporters are there at the end. They want to see the fall more than they enjoyed the rise.
Now, and Hollywood loves to tell stories about Hollywood, and I think having the journalist there at the end is very much a commentary on that, even though this whole movie is a story about Hollywood. But it is like they are only interested in her after she does something interesting, which in this case is to kill someone.
I think one really small moment in that ending was one of the few people that is actively crying in that scene is the reporter, who is also the only woman besides Norma in this scene.
Hedda Hopper.
Yeah, Hedda Hopper. And I feel like, to me, maybe I'm reading into this, but it did kind of, I think she kind of knew, like, in her face, I could see kind of like her understanding all of the sexism and horrible things that led to this moment. Maybe, again, I'm kind of overreading this moment, but the way that she was kind of crying and looking into it, I think there was a part of her that was like, this could happen to any of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much as we were talking about this as being like a very serious movie and a tragedy, it's also very funny.
Yeah.
Like, it would never, it's not one of those where you get like a laugh out loud, but it definitely got like a few like smirks or snorts out of me.
It's that ultimate kind of like dark, like awkward humor, because you don't know what else you're supposed to do. Like, everything is just so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh. And then ask yourself why you did laugh, why you did think that was funny. What do you need to fix about yourself?
So it's like, this is kind of a one-of-a-kind movie where it is genre bendy. Like, it's noir. It's a black comedy, like one of the blackest of black comedies. It's dark.
Mm-hmm. It's also just really like clever and smart. It's really consistent in its themes and its motifs. Its ideas are very well balanced and presented to each other. Like we said before, his introduction is the death of a monkey, and he becomes the new monkey. Maybe even better of an imagery is that when the pool is still empty, right before we see the monkey funeral, he looks in the pool and sees rats that are in the pool, which could be, isn't he kind of the biggest rat in this movie? And he ends up in the same place. Mm-hmm. Like little things like that I think really help a film stand out from being great to one of the all-time classics, which I would absolutely still say this is.
It definitely is. It's one of those movies that gets better upon rewatch, and I don't don't think that's necessarily true of a lot of movies, even ones I love. You know, it's not my favorite movie, but that's just a matter of personal taste.
Oh, absolutely. But it did make me remind me, like, God, I wish more movies like this. I guess more movies are like, God, that was just so smart. That was so cool what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, in short, I guess my final thought that I want to bring up is, you know, so this movie, we talk about movies that are mostly, or media, not just movies, but we've been doing movies so far, that are about women and girls, you know, and while this movie is from the point of view of a man, whose story it is, this is Norma's story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not that I think it should ever be remade, because why would you remake one of the greatest of all time, but if it ever is done, I would like to see it done where it is her story, completely.
I mean, this narrative has been told many times over and over, not just parroting this film, but the idea of, like, the starlet secluded away. I mean, you can find this everywhere. It's not a dead idea. It's honestly more relevant, if anything.
And you can even find this exact story because they made it into a musical.
Beautiful. She would have liked that, maybe. No, she wouldn't. She hates singing and talking.
There is one moment where she very clearly pushes the mic away.
That was, again, this is such a smart movie. Like, it's so fucking good. This is a great movie, and I highly recommend it.
Ditto.
See it at different times. If see it now, see it 10 years from now. See if anything changes in your head. If because you have new experiences, you relate differently to all the things that are happening.
Yes, and the beauty stuff, the lady experience.
Yes. Why are you looking at?
Because you said yes.
Yes. I've never worn a beauty product in my life. I am completely...
natural.
I'm all natural. You know, as a cis woman born with a perfect, beautiful body, I take insult to that.
Excuse you. I am ready for my close-up.
We all are ready for our close-up, which I think is a good place to end all that. Unless you got any final thoughts.
Stars are ageless. Stars
are ageless. All right, so that was Sunset Boulevard. As you can tell, we both really enjoyed it and recommended it. For next, I'm just gonna whatever. We were kind of talking about it before, but I think enough people. Also, I get a lot of people asking me to do this film anyway because it's a film that is not only very important to me, but it continues to be relevant and probably becomes more and more relevant as time goes by, and it's a great companion piece to this. So why not? We're gonna do Perfect Blue next month by Satoshi Kon, one of the most upsetting films I've ever seen, and also one of the greatest films I've ever seen.
I have actually never seen this one. It's been on my list.
Oh my god, you thought this was a
that's why I've never seen it.
Oh my god. I mean, it's really good. And I talked about Paranoia on my YouTube channel. Why not also talk about my other films by one of my favorite directors of all time, who died way too young, Mr. Satoshi Kon. Besides that, if you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, check out the other videos on my channel. I've got stuff on Fantastic Beasts and how that sucks. I've got stuff on Beau is Afraid, Paranoia, like I mentioned before. And I'm going to be having a Matrix video essay coming up. It's close. I keep saying that, but it'll happen. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but it's not gonna not appear on my channel randomly someday. So look forward to that. As always, Jess is unfindable. Do not ask where she could be found. You will never find her. She is escaped within the movie. She is now a part of the cinema. She's the ghost in the machine. The entire day I was like, God, I can only imagine what Jess is going to look like when she comes in.
Did I live up to your expectations?
And then some. As always, thank you all so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.